you.
Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a few moments and wait for folks to log in. All right, seeing more people come in. We'd love to hear how you're doing. Please chat us, do an introduction. All right, well, as we wait for folks to trickle in, I'm just going to go ahead and get us started here through our intro slides. So thanks everyone for joining the 12th Annual SEEK Forum second webinar. We're on day 3, Soup to Nuts, an interagency approach to guiding constituents from education to energy savings, featuring the California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority as a part of the State Treasurer's Office, BayREN, and the County of Santa Clara. Next slide, please. This year's forum is funded and sponsored by the Tri-County Regional Energy Network, BayREN, and SoCalREN. We'd also like to thank our additional sponsors, Terra Verde Energy, the Energy Coalition, and TRC for supporting our efforts this year for the forum. Slide, please. Also want to give a huge thank you to our promo partners for extending our reach to help diversify our audience so that more local governments can learn and hear from each other. Next slide, please. All right, just want to go over some quick housekeeping. I'm sure you're all familiar, but for this webinar, please be sure to keep yourself muted and ask any questions through our Q&A box. You should have the option to vote up on questions that you would like to see answered. Additionally, we encourage you to use the chat box, like I said before, to interact with other participants, introduce yourself, or you can reach out to SEEK staff on the line, myself, Serena Soar, or John Vandervoort about any tech issues. Next slide, please. All right, now I'd like to pass it on to our first speaker for this webinar, Tanya Veach, who is a Senior Sustainability Analyst at the County of Santa Clara Office of Sustainability. Thanks for joining us, Tanya.
Thank you so much, Serena, and hello and welcome to the webinar, Soup to Nuts, an interagency approach to guiding constituents from education to energy savings. My name is Tanya Veach, and as mentioned, I'm a Senior Sustainability Analyst with the County of Santa Clara Office of Sustainability. You'll learn more about me and my colleagues and our agencies a little bit later. As mentioned earlier, please submit your questions in the Q&A box as we'll be actively responding throughout the presentation, and we have allotted lots of time at the end for Q&A. For now, let's jump into this interactive session. My fellow panelists and I are representing energy and sustainability programs at the county, regional, and state levels. Recognize that interagency collaboration is so important in guiding constituents from education to energy savings. However, with many energy-focused programs and resources statewide, it can be difficult for local governments to help their constituents navigate all the options and overcome barriers to making energy upgrades. Today, we hope to provide a framework for interagency collaboration that has worked for us and provide a continuum of support for constituents to improve their energy efficiency. We'll be introducing 3 guidelines for success, which include knowledge sharing, seamless user experience, and scaling. For our presentation, we wanted to incorporate some edutainment where we combine education and engagement in the form of interactive poll questions. I would like to encourage you to participate in our poll questions throughout the presentation. To begin, if you all have a second device, such as a cell phone, or you can open up another tab on your computer, please go to www.menti.com. You can pull up that website and enter the code on your screen, 26825134. That access code will get you into our polling system for today's event. Our first question for you all is, what kind of problems have you experienced in developing a cohesive multi-agency approach to energy upgrades among your constituents? So feel free to log into Menti and let us know your thoughts. We want to hear from you. And by participating, it helps us to be able to frame our responses and questions. So we want to be able to address some of these. We'll let folks participate. Don't be shy.
If anyone is having any technical difficulties, feel free to mention in the chat, and we're happy to help.
Great, we have some of the responses coming in now. Awesome. So some are saying lack of capacity and knowledge, disseminating information, participating uptake, demonstrating value, not enough funding. Many of these things we can all definitely relate to. Let's see, coordination with other agencies, overwhelming capacity, funding, and agency capacity. These are all really great. Feel free to keep them coming in. Not enough funding, lack of direction from elected officials.
I think we're going to talk a lot about capacity building today. While I'm not glad to hear you're experiencing these problems, I am glad to hear that we're like-minded.
Yes. Okay. Well, it looks like the polls have kind of slowly stopped coming in. So I'm just going to get us onto the next slide. And again, keep that link up so that way you can continue to participate with us throughout the presentation. Thank you so much. Oh, look, a few others popped up. Unclear to partners that we should be affiliating, limited staff support. Totally. Ah, there we go. A few more. Thank you so much all for participating. All right, I'm going to move us on to the next slide. And so a couple questions come to mind when I think of knowledge sharing. One is, how do we raise public awareness of energy efficiency programs among constituents? And two, how do we help constituents transition from education to action? We can do this by meeting people where they are. I recently pivoted my events to focus on energy efficiency and electrification versus leading with available energy efficiency rebates. Eventually, I want to create a webinar series where we have different sessions that focus on energy efficiency, electrification, indoor air quality, solar. Although the focus of each webinar may be different, I'm able to tie that back into the available rebates and resources and financing options that are available throughout our county. We can also partner with complementary programs. Again, I'm here with Bayron and the state financing program, and I couldn't host our event successfully without my amazing partners who not only co-present with me during events, but who also provide me with collateral, digital media toolkits, and more. Partnering with various programs help to provide constituents with a holistic view of energy efficiency. And identifying your target audience is really vital to this as well, because this can be different for all of us. While some may be considering who really needs energy efficiency, and others might be saying like, who are the folks who are like most primed to take advantage of energy efficiency? So helping to identify your target audience is going to be really essential to helping you market these programs. And also determine the best method of outreach. So we know there's digital outreach, there's also snail mail, and I'll kind of go over a little bit later on the marketing efforts that have worked best for me in my county.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Kaylee D'Amico, and I work with the California Alternative Energy and Advanced Transportation Financing Authority in the State Treasurer's Office. Thanks, Tanya, for the introduction. And I wanted to emphasize the importance of aspiring to a seamless user experience for constituents as they navigate this energy efficiency landscape. I think the big question that we've been asking as we develop this webinar and work together more broadly is, how do we make it easy for constituents to navigate these programs and understand how they can use them? So while it's great that there are several programs that constituents can choose from to build their education on energy efficiency, or even access rebates or incentives for those upgrades, there are many different messengers in this space promoting different programs and resources. And as Tanya was saying, on this panel alone, we're coming from a county sustainability office, a REN, and the state. So there are a lot of agencies that need to come together and work collaboratively behind the scenes to ensure that the seamless user experience makes it easy for customers to learn about their options and execute their projects. I think it's also important to consider the matchmaking component to this, because not every program will be a perfect fit for every constituent. There's also an element of helping people pick and choose which resources are going to be most beneficial for their needs. And all of this is kind of in service of the need for customers to be fully aware of the options that are available to them, and to have that presented to them in a way that is cohesive and comprehensive. Next slide, please.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Liang. I am the program manager for BayREN. And one of the things we also want to, kind of consider is what are the larger overall goals. If I think according to SB 100, we are trying to get to 100% zero carbon and renewable homes by 2045. And so if we are to try to reach that, then we need to think about what are the obstacles along the way for people. And having run the rebate program, I know I get a lot of those comments from people that rebates are great, but there's still that upfront cost. Like I want to do switch to heat pumps and want to put in heat pump water heaters, or do the installation and do all that. But at the end of the day, if they need to pay $10,000–$15,000 up front to get that $5,000 rebate, maybe it's a pretty significant amount of rebate, but that upfront cost is still a barrier for people. And then I also see this sort of like as a equity issue. If we are knowing that a lot of people don't have enough savings to be able to really pay for a large scale project like this, we want to get to a point where we talk about, for me, and I know not everyone can get to this, but make it a process that can be cash flow positive. That if we're able to give the rebates and combine rebates, financing, other things together, that ideally, and this is, I've heard stories of this where people were able to finance it, and the savings that they got on their energy bills more than paid for the cost of the financing. And that's something that can then be, everybody could take care of it, because essentially, you'd be losing money if you're not doing it. And that's kind of what, there's a lot of obstacles to get there, but that's kind of what we're trying to get to for the future, because there is that urgent goal of getting to, upgrading however many million homes there are in California by 2045. So that's kind of always in the back of our mind as we think about how do we combine forces and combine as much resources together to get us to that, and also to reach as many people together. Next slide.
Thank you, Jeffrey and Kaylee. Now we're just going to dive in a little bit on our individual programs, so you can learn a little bit more about the amazing things that our organizations are doing to help advance energy efficiency. So I'm excited to share more about the County of Santa Clara and our Office of Sustainability, as well as provide you with a quick overview of our county's sustainability vision. Our county recently adopted a sustainability master plan, the first of our for county to be able to do so. And that vision is to build a livable, equitable, and resilient Santa Clara County. And by able to achieve that, we are going to prioritize actions across 4 priority areas, 8 goals, and 30 strategies. And so through these 8 goals, we work to reduce greenhouse gases and build resilience to the threats of climate change and natural disasters, enhance and protect natural resources and habitats, and reduce the cumulative impacts of environmental hazards, improve the health of the community and the conditions in places where people live, work, play, and learn, and also build financial security and prosperity for all and promote leadership and collaboration. So the implementation approach by our office is to integrate sustainability as a core function within county operations, provide capacity and technical assistance, coordinate and support cross-departmental sustainability efforts, and build networks and empower collective action and transformation. So a little bit more about the County of Santa Clara, in case folks aren't familiar. The county's population of 1.9 million residents is one of the largest in the state and the largest of the 9 Bay Area counties. There are 15 cities in the county, ranging from Palo Alto in the north to Gilroy in our south. And PG&E is the investor-owned utility that serves nearly all jurisdictions in the county, except for those with municipal utilities. And in our county, we're lucky to be able to have 2, and that is with the City of Palo Alto Utilities and Silicon Valley Power. Additionally, the county has not 1, but 2 community choice aggregators, better known as CCAs, and that is San Jose Clean Energy, who serves nearly 1 million residents and businesses in the city of San Jose. And while we also have Silicon Valley Clean Energy, who serves 13 communities, including the unincorporated areas of Santa Clara County. So the county, in addition to all of that, is a member of the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, better known as BayREN, a highly effective and trusted government organization for the delivery of targeted, integrated, regional scale climate solutions focused on energy, water, and resiliency. It is important to note that only PG&E and CCA customers are eligible to receive these BayREN rebates, and Jeffrey's going to talk more about BayREN later in his presentation. So in Santa Clara County, as you can see, there are many programs who offer amazing rebates, as well as financing options that are available to residents as well as businesses. And sometimes, even for me, it's hard to keep everything in track. And sometimes I have to double check, is someone eligible for this rebate or not eligible for this rebate? So this is why I lean on strong partnerships with the various programs to help me ensure that I accurately share knowledge and educate constituents, create a seamless user experience, and help constituents scale their programs. So where they're able to take advantage of multiple programs and rebate offerings and financing options to help them achieve their energy efficiency, electrification, and even solar goals. It is extremely important to raise awareness among our constituents, hopefully before they start an energy efficiency project, because many of the programs out there are not retroactive. So they have to be able to participate before they start a project. And so but how can we do this equitably? And being able to couple financing with rebates and make things more economically viable. As we know, energy efficiency upgrades can be extremely expensive. And, for those with equity or, those who don't have as much money to be able to provide those, how do we do that equitably and provide those services to our constituents? So here's a quick overview of how I help direct customers and our constituents to energy efficiency programs such as BayREN, the REAL program, the Residential Energy Efficiency Loan Program, but soon to be known as GoGreen Home, which Kaylee will talk a little bit more about, in addition to other complementary programs. So one of the major outreach strategies that my county does and that I oversee is we host anywhere between 8 to 10 workshops, or now because of COVID, webinars a year. And so due to the pandemic, all events in 2020 and 2021 are going to be, were and will be continue to be virtual. For all of our webinars, I partner with the jurisdiction to co-host the event. And so that gives the jurisdiction an opportunity to connect with their residents and speak to their local environmental and sustainability initiatives. Additionally, it provides another method of outreach because those jurisdictional partners that I co-host this event with are able to promote BayREN and all these other complementary services to their constituents and invite them to attend our webinar and events. And so we have also hosted, again, thinking about equity, we've hosted these webinars and workshops, not just in English, but we have hosted them in English and Spanish and Mandarin. And now we're looking into partnering with other organizations so that way we can potentially host Vietnamese webinars and workshops. So that way, again, we can really focus on equity and making sure that everyone who wants to be participating in energy efficiency programs can and has the information available to them. So partnering with complementary programs is going to be, again, I mentioned this, but I invite the appropriate CCA depending on where the event I'm going to be hosting. Also, I partner with BayREN, and so that way at my events, there's a BayREN energy advisor who's available to answer technical question as well as help with the presentation. I invite our BayREN participating contractors and home energy score assessors. And so one thing I wanted to note was that at the beginning of the pandemic, not all of our programs and partners, especially those who are the contractors and assessors, were really Zoom ready. And to be honest, I had never Zoomed before the pandemic started. So I had to, like many of you, had to quickly get up to speed. So to combat this digital and technology divide with my program partners, I offered loaner technology kits, which included a laptop, microphone, camera, and even a lighting system to ensure that we were able to provide a great and professional customer experience throughout our webinars. So that way every attendee felt like, okay, they know what they're talking about. They got their act together. And additionally, my team created a how-to Zoom guide as well as video and created virtual backgrounds for all of our co-presenters. And so some of our outreach strategies include things like mailers. And so I don't know about you, but mailers have actually been one of our best lead generators for being able to track like who's attending our webinars. Even though we do things like digital media ads, mailers always tend to see the biggest thing because we brand it with the County of Santa Clara's branding and logo. So folks think like, hey, I got this mailer from the county, it must be important. So they actually open the mailer and we have a great response that way. Again, I mentioned digital media ads. Because of the pandemic, we felt like we had to do different types of strategy and marketing. So we opted to look into digital media to be able to encourage folks to attend our webinars that we were hosting, as well as look more into the programs that we were going to be talking about at those webinars. And we've created digital media toolkits for every webinar that we can provide to the jurisdiction that we're co-hosting the event with, to provide it to the CCA so that they can put it on their social media channels. And we also are using the toolkit to be able to help support our own social media accounts. And additionally, we host on our website, which is going to be revised very shortly. We host different information on the different programs. So that way, if someone is focused and interested in learning more, they have that accessible on our website. And if you're interested in seeing one of our webinars that we've recently put out, let me know and I will be happy to email you a link to one of our recent webinars. Okay, so with all of that marketing and outreach, I wanted just to quickly highlight what is the impact with all of these, efforts. And so for our webinars, I just wanted to mention that we average about 50 attendees per webinar, but have had upwards of 100 attendees at our webinars, depending on the cities. And the number of registrations per webinar is double that because we know that we're seeing like at least a 40 to 45% no-show rate. But to help to combat this, my team actually calls every person who registered because they registered through Eventbrite. So we're able to require that they give us their phone number and we send them a friendly voicemail, or we talk to them just to remind them to attend the events the night before the webinar. And so additionally, based on our post-webinar surveys, we have 96% of attendees noted in our surveys that they learned something new and also indicated that they're going to take some sort of next step. And just to be able to speak to some of the efforts through BayREN and the Go Green Home programs, for BayREN, we have had in 2020 over $2 million paid to homeowners and property owners within the County of Santa Clara for energy efficiency and electrification upgrades. So that's a great number and story to tell. And in addition to that, there's been over 2,100 homes that were upgraded. And out of that 2,100 homes, 560 homes were single family homes that received the rebates. With those $2 million. And to kind of just sum things up, that was over 987 metric tons of CO2e that was reduced countywide. And that is equivalent to 176 homes not consuming electricity, 213 passenger cars removed from the roads, and 336 tons of waste recycled instead of landfilled. And that is based on the EPA's GHG equivalency calculator. And with Go Green Home across the 9 Bay Area counties, there's been over 175 loans that have been issued. And in Santa Clara County alone, 15 loans have been issued. I'm really excited with the partnership that we developed and additional materials that we're going to get that number higher in Santa Clara County. And just to kind of sum things up and give you some ideas, potential collaboration opportunities, and to be able to help either you connect, or for those who are maybe programs wanting to connect with your jurisdictional partners, offering plug and play content is something that's super valuable. If you want me to be able to promote your program, give me that plug and play content that I can put in a mailer, a website, or on our social media through digital media toolkits that include things like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Nextdoor, and then give me also photos that I can include with those posts too. Additionally, PowerPoint slides. As I mentioned, we host a number of webinars. Provide me those PowerPoint slides if you're not able to attend our webinars, and I'll be happy to be able to speak to the programs that you're able to provide in your absence from those. And attending our webinars and workshops is super valuable. Not only does it give your program accessibility to the public, but then it helps to establish that program partnership between the county and the program. And then just again, following one another on social media. I know we're always looking for content, but being able to share something with each other is super helpful. And then collaboration on materials. I don't have a dedicated graphic designer on my team. I have to be able to help do things, but like BayREN and the Go Green Home programs, I've been able to let them know what my needs are, and they've been able to help me create content and collateral and materials to be able to support their programs with the intention of being able to make sure it's easy for our constituents to learn more about these awesome programs. So with all of that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Jeffrey so that way he can talk a little bit more about BayREN. Take it away, Jeffrey.
Great, thank you. So as Tanya mentioned, BayREN is the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, and it covers the counties that you can see there. There's 9 counties, all very, very diverse in, interests, in demographics. And so this collaboration started in 2013 so that we could administer energy efficiency funds. So we receive ratepayer dollars from the CPUC. And so we have several different programs. We're talking about the single family program, but even within the residential sector, there's our green labeling program, which offers, a quick 1 to 10 score asset-based score, so that people can understand their energy use and how it compares to other homes of similar vintage and style. And there's also the multifamily program, which covers homes, multifamily buildings from 4 units or above. So within BayREN, we're also, kind of needing to collaborate among the different programs as well. But the nice thing about what BayREN offers is we're uniquely positioned to coordinate, and we already coordinate with all the counties, and we can become a little bit of a information clearinghouse, because we can't, obviously, a lot of people kind of live and work across these borders, and by positioning ourselves as kind of the regional collaboration, it allows us to really direct people to where they need to go. Next page. All right, next slide. Thank you. And so I'll just give you a little bit of a background as to BayREN Home Plus, our rebate program, and then kind of talk a little bit more about how we collaborate. So kind of just really simple, BayREN Home Plus is the name of our rebate program. And homeowners are able to get up to $5,000 for doing things like insulation, duct sealing, duct replacement, more efficient furnaces and water heaters. As of last year, March 2020, we also added electrification measures. And of course, right after we added that, then everything shut down. So we're still starting to ramp up on that, but we're starting, because of some of these collaborations I'll mention, we're actually ramping up a lot, especially around heat pump water heaters now. And so, kind of the process is homeowners go to, our, either find out through the counties, and that's actually probably one of the most common ways, going to a webinar, hearing that there are these rebate programs, and then they get connected to participating contractors who are, we run through our, we vet them, we make sure that they have the proper licenses and insurance, and then we do QA and QC on the jobs that they do. The only exceptions on those is we have a rebate for induction range and cooktops and heat pump clothes dryers, and those are the homeowner applied, but everything else is, all the paperwork, rebate paperwork, is handled by the participating contractors. So to make it a little easier, we know that I've been working in kind of the energy efficiency for the last 12 years, almost 13 years. And the question that people always come is, what do I do first? And it can be really confusing for someone who's not involved with these programs to know what are all the options. And so one of our main features or main kind of resources is our home energy advisor helpline. So we have a number, and on our website you can send a request to them via our contact form, and so that 866 number that goes to our home energy advisors. And so that is one of the a very key part of our service, because this allows us to walk people through every step of the way, from I don't know what I need to do, and they can, our energy advisors can talk to them about, the value of insulation and why, really walk them through their individual situation, all the way to reviewing bids and finding contractors. They're there to be independent advisors for people. What this also allows us to do is it allows us to be a sort of a one-stop shop of information. So when people come to us, they may, need to do these, do the measures in our program, or maybe they just need something else before that. So, we connect people to a local nonprofit who runs a program called Greenhouse Calls, where it's like a checklist audit, where young local youth help walk them through some of the simple things. Are they, what kind of light bulbs do they have? Do they have aerators on their faucets? Low flow shower heads. But it also allows us to refer to financing if it's necessary. Refer to, even though we don't offer solar and batteries, that's becoming more of a question. We can get them to other programs. I heard this great phrase from another kind of program where they said, no door is the wrong door. So that as people come in, even if they're not it's not where they are is not best suited for our program, that we make sure we get them to the right places. And so I think probably the next slide now. So that's really what we're trying to think about. There's so much complexity in this world, especially in this energy world. We have income qualified programs, we have behavioral programs, and we have programs that will help you disaggregate your energy use and figure out where what things you should focus on. All these are great resources, and maybe they're great resources for different people. And so, but unfortunately, they're often in different kind of funding, different administrators. There's PG&E, there's the state programs, there's our programs, there's private programs for demand response. And for the average person, this is just so confusing. They know what they need to, they generally know that they need to do something to make their house more efficient, but they don't have the time to research 5 different programs, and they could be eligible for all of those programs, but the kind of myriad of options can give them decision paralysis. And so one of the, as I said, that home energy advisors is one thing where we're trying to get people where they are and move them one step forward. And that maybe we direct them to the home energy score program because that's what they need at that point, but that they can always get directed back to us. So it's really developing these relationships between our program and all the other programs and figuring out how do we make this easier for everybody. One of the things I wanted to mention how we're trying to do that is this last Earth Day, we held a workshop where it was, we couldn't do it in a physical format and have a fair and with all these different programs and resources there. And so what we try to do and replicate that model is we held I think the title was Everything You Need to Know About Energy in 30 Minutes or Less. And how we set it up is I gave an overview in 30 minutes about all the what's happening, time of use, what the duck curve is, very, very brief, just enough to let them know why energy is getting more expensive for 4 to 9. Talked about batteries, and then talked about, what are the things that they can do in their homes. And then after those 30 minutes, they could then choose a breakout session where they could hear more about other programs. So there's one just on time of use. What is that and how does that affect me? Another one on what are some simple things that I can do to just get started, all the way up to our program. How do you get rebates for making these home improvement projects? And then how do you fully electrify your homes? And by doing that, we made it so that people didn't have to necessarily figure out, was this a PG&E program? Was this a CCA program? That this was somewhere that they could go first and then figure out what the next step is. And we have it all recorded on YouTube. So even if they couldn't go to that 2 breakout sessions, they can go back and see what information they missed. So that's, we're starting to do more of that. It was so popular. I think we had over 600 people register that we're going to actually do it again in the fall. We're just starting that planning for that. And in reaching out to all those different program providers, they were all very excited because, it did direct people to those different programs and just kind of provided people what they needed at that time. So that's kind of, I started about January 2020, and of course the pandemic put a wrench into all these plans, but that's really what I'm trying to do. I think my focus is to create these long-term connections between all the programs, because as you see at the bottom of this, we're all in this together. We're all trying to get to the same point of getting to that clean, all our homes being powered by clean and renewable energy. Another thing that kind of that's kind of in the outreach to the programs and to the homeowners. But on the back end, we also want to figure out where are there places that we can coordinate. And just a little bit about my personal history. I worked with, I helped launch Energy Upgrade California back in 2011, but I also worked with the different finance programs, including Real or Go Green Home soon. So it was interesting because when I was part of that program, I was reaching out to the same contractors that I'm reaching out to now. And so I'm very familiar with the financing program. And one of the things that occurred to me is if people are offering that financing, they should be really because all the measures in the financing should be often get a rebate as well. So really, but we were finding some contractors offered rebates but not financing, and then opposite also offered financing but not rebates. And so a lot of Kaylee and I have started talking more about how do we reach out to contractors together, because at the end of the day, they're the kind of entry point to both our programs. So how do we reach out to them together, let them know about what are the other resources, how do we coordinate requirements and paperwork. I mean, Kaylee and Real, and I guess Go Green Home now, they basically said any measures that are offered by the rebate programs can get financing. And so making sure that, and a lot of the paperwork is very similar. So figuring out how, between our programs, how do we make it easier, and how do we pass information to each other so that it's more streamlined, because that's really, the issue for the contractors. So, I'm mentioning all this, and I think the theme for me is, again, how do we take all this complexity, all these different requirements, as Tanya mentioned, they have CCAs and different munis within their borders. How do we take all these different requirements and processes, and how do we make it so that for the user experience, that it is as seamless and simple as possible? And we can only do that through coordinating with each other and also leveraging each other's networks. And BayREN is, even though we may know who BayREN is, most of the average citizen doesn't know. So we definitely have to leverage that credibility and legitimacy that Santa Clara provides, and all our other counties can bring. And I think it's really by bringing all these things together that we can really talk about scale. How do we get to a point where we're reaching those 2045 goals? And last thing before I kind of pass this on to Kaylee is also thinking about, I try to think about what happened in the solar industry and how, when I first started working in energy, solar was this niche thing that was gaining some momentum, but, it was not, there was a huge adoption curve that, that took place kind of 10, 15 years ago. And it's really, combining not just the benefits, but also the financing was such a huge part of making that work. And so then I'll close there and pass it on to Kaylee to talk about how we are able to make, hopefully make that work more.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey, and thank you, Tanya. I'm excited to follow up on both of your presentations with the financing component, which helps to eliminate the upfront cost barrier for constituents when they're considering an energy upgrade, and represents a later stage of that overall constituent journey, thinking about the process from education to project completion. So I'm going to start with a kind of an overview of our programs and then transition into kind of how that relates to the bigger picture we're talking about in the webinar today. And I'm going to be talking specifically about a suite of programs offered through the California Hub for Energy Efficiency Financing, or the CHIEF, which is housed within our agency in the State Treasurer's Office, to give you a sense of all the layers. Next slide, please, Tanya. So the CHIEF runs 3 financing programs, and all 3 use a financial mechanism called a credit enhancement to leverage private capital for energy efficiency upgrades. The program provides our participating finance companies with the credit enhancement to mitigate their risk And in turn, the lenders are able to offer better loan terms to the customers. So these include lower rates. Right now, our rate range for the residential program is about 3 to 8%, compared with the national average of 10.3% for similar loans. The credit enhancement also allows lenders to offer longer payback terms, which helps to lower monthly payments for customers, and broader approval criteria that brings the minimum credit score to qualify for this financing down to 580. With that mechanism in place, contractors are then able to present really attractive financing options to their customers, who are then able to start or complete deeper energy upgrades, reduce their energy use, and contribute to broader energy savings goals in the long run. Next slide, please. So here's some information about our 3 financing programs, and I'll preface this slide by saying that, as Tanya and Jeffrey mentioned, we are in the midst of renaming them. So some of you may already know these programs as the REAL program, the SBF program, and the AMF program, but we're currently in the process of changing those names to match our public platform, which is known as GoGreen Financing. So I'm pleased to introduce to you the GoGreen Home Energy Financing Program, GoGreen Business Energy Financing, and GoGreen Affordable Multifamily Energy Financing today. For short, GoGreen Home, GoGreen Business, and GoGreen Multifamily. All of these financing options are unsecured or equipment secured, meaning that they're not tied to the property like a PACE loan is, and all of the financing offers the extended terms that I mentioned in the last slide. There are some specific details in the financing offered through each program in the little boxes on this slide, but I want to highlight a couple of exciting developments happening right now. GoGreen Home is actually about to start offering microloans for appliance purchases made through the online utility marketplaces. That's launching first in SoCalGas territory this month, with other utilities to follow later. And GoGreen Business is about to launch on-bill repayment functionality, which will allow customers to pay for their financing as part of their monthly utility bill. Next slide, please, Tanya. So I want to transition into some outcomes from GoGreen Home, which is our oldest and most prolific program of the 3. As of this week, we've enrolled 1,400 loans and over $23 million in financing across the state, with an average project size of nearly $17,000. We currently have 9 participating lenders in the program and a network of over 500 contractors who are trained to offer this financing to their customers. And as Jeffrey mentioned, there is significant overlap in the Bay Area between our contractors and the Bay Rent contractors. The average term length for this loan is 108 months or 9 years. You can see that many customers are taking advantage of the longer repayment options offered through the program. And for every $1 of funding that we receive for the credit enhancement, the program is leveraging $6.55 of private capital. Moving on to the tables in the middle of this slide, I want to talk briefly about how GoGreen Home serves the underserved. The pie chart above shows the percentage of loans enrolled by census tract income. And you can see that a combined 56% of all the loans that have been enrolled through the program have been enrolled in low to moderate income census tracts. We also track things like loans enrolled by Cal and Virus Screen Score and other metrics that are available in our quarterly reports. Below that, you can see exactly how much interest customers save by using this program. The average rate for loans enrolled through GoGreen Home is 6.6% lower than what the same customer would have received for the same loan through the same lender without using the program. So it's a significant savings for the customers on a project by project basis. And finally, on the right is our map of loans enrolled by county. As you can see, we've had significant uptake in the Bay Area and Southern California, with Central Valley uptake increasing as well. Next slide. So at the end of the day, what does this look like for a customer? I'm going to walk through an example of a potential project that could be done with GoGreen Home. So let's say Bill, the customer, has a credit score of 600 and needs $30,000 for his home upgrade project. That includes a new HVAC system and energy efficient windows, but he also needs to bring his electric panel up to code, which he can do through the same GoGreen Home loan, because we're able to include the legal and practical measures associated with the project within the financing. Bill also wants to landscape his backyard. which in this case, he can also include in this loan as well, because up to 30% of a GoGreen home loan can be used for non-energy related measures. So if Bill was to take this project and walk into his local credit union to secure financing for it, he would likely be offered an unsecured loan that would result in a monthly payment of over $600. But through GoGreen Home, Bill's interest rate would be lower and his term length would be longer, which reduces that monthly payment by nearly $400 a month for the same project, which is not only reducing the burden on Bill significantly, it's also likely making the project feasible at all for this customer to consider doing. And that's how this financing specifically supports the ability for customers to take on and complete deeper energy retrofits. Next slide, please. So turning back to the subject of this webinar, it's important to recognize that financing alleviates the upfront cost barrier for constituents considering these projects, but the financing alone doesn't typically generate its own demand. A good financing option is usually not going to be the deciding factor for or against an energy upgrade, and we found that customers need to already be considering doing an energy efficiency project before this financing becomes attractive and relevant to them. It's a late stage step in the larger energy upgrade projects that comes after education and outreach and considering rebates, like Tanya and Jeffrey were saying. So if we rely on other energy efficiency programs and their administrators to get customers ready to take on their project, and once they're ready and kind of willing to take on that project, we provide the financing that helps them follow through and avoid an upfront cash outlay. And we make the financing much more attractive than the other options available on the market. So with this in mind, all of our financing options can be used in combination with rebates and incentives or on its own. So ideally, a constituent in Santa Clara would receive resources from Tanya that help them navigate this landscape, a rebate from Jeffrey to make the project more appealing, and then financing from us to help seal the deal. Next slide. So finally, I want to end on a call to action based on that point, and thinking about kind of next steps and how we can all kind of implement some of this thinking in our own work. For financing in particular, cross promotions and integration with existing energy efficiency programs and local government sustainability offices are both key opportunities to kind of get the word out. The screenshots here are an example of a cross promotion that we did where we promoted Bay Ren incentives for heat pump water heaters to our contractor network. And going forward, we encourage local governments to promote our financing options and other energy efficiency resources to their constituents to help bridge that gap we've been discussing between information and project completion. And as Tanya mentioned too, we're always happy to work together with our partners to provide information and collateral that you can use to achieve this. So don't be a stranger, feel free to reach out to discuss how financing can be incorporated into your materials. And so that concludes my presentation, and I think we're now going to transition to Q&A. So if you don't mind going to the next slide, please, Tanya. As a reminder, please do feel free to add any questions that you might have to the Q&A box as we're going to start reading through those in a few minutes. It looks like we have a few coming in, but feel free to add to that. First, though, I think we're going to do a few more Mentimeter polls. So if you participated in the first poll, you should be able to visit that same page again and access the next questions. But in case you need it, friendly reminder that the website is www.menti.com. And the code for this webinar is 2682-5134. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to get there, but the question that will be waiting for you when you're on Menti is, how is your local government or organization currently promoting energy efficiency rebates, incentives, and financing, if at all? And I know earlier that several of you had mentioned that capacity building is an issue and funding is an issue. So I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of solutions we're all currently using in the absence of those resources available. So feel free to add some stuff to our word map here. I'm seeing newsletter, emails to staff. Both of those are email campaigns. There's a lot of that going on, which is great. Contractors, webinars. Yeah, a wide variety of responses here, but all kind of pointing back to that digital outreach as being a key kind of, it being a key medium for this kind of resource to go out. Oh, installers, it's an interesting one. Webinars, community outreach. Yeah, that's great. I think that speaks a lot to what Tanya was saying in her presentation of some of the methods she was using to kind of get the word out among her own constituents. Energy efficiency audit, that's an interesting one. Rebates, yep. Public events, nonprofits. Yeah, there's some really interesting answers here. Cool. Tanya, Jeffrey, any other thoughts or comments before I move on to the next Mentimeter poll?
I just wanted to add that I really like that someone put nonprofits or like community-based organizations, because that's something that my program, as well as Bayren and some of our collaboration efforts, we're really trying to see how we can work with our CBO partners even more strongly, because they're often the ones on the ground, boots on the ground, and connecting with the residents and the constituents. So really being able to hear more from them and partner with them is something that we're looking to do and be better on.
Yeah, great point. All right, well, let's move on to the next poll then before we dive into Q&A. So we have one more question to ask you all before we start taking on some of your questions, which is, what do you think is the most important aspect of successful interagency collaboration in the context of energy upgrades? And I know that the responses are hard to read here, so I'll read them out loud as well. So option 1 is cross promotions and endorsements to constituent and partner networks, so things like newsletters and web pages. Option 2 is direct constituent outreach and education, like webinars. Communication and knowledge sharing behind the scenes, so things like meetings and committees among staff. And then if you have another idea that isn't represented here, we welcome you to share it by dropping it in the chat instead. So we'll give everyone a minute to work on the poll.
And also, if you've already put some items in, feel free to go to the Q&A box and upvote any questions. It looks like we have 3 so far. Feel free to add more questions or upvote the ones you are interested in, and I will start with the ones that have the most votes.
Good questions. Yeah, it's interesting that the communication and knowledge sharing behind the scenes is highest in this poll. I think that's a great sign of the need for more of this kind of collaboration happening away from the eyes of the constituents, which I think is interesting.
And Kaylee, we got a message in the chat from Christina, who also mentioned that benchmarking data and information sharing is something that she looks to do too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, well, thank you everyone for participating in the polls. And now I'm going to pass it over to Jeffrey to kick off our Q&A.
Sure, thank you. So let's just dive right in. I think the first question is, are any of these incentives available for renters? How do you all work with multifamily property owners to inform and encourage them to use these programs?
I can take the first answer on that.
Sure.
So for the financing program, so GoGreen Home is available to renters in various different property types as well. So single family homes, duplexes and triplexes, condos, mobile homes, as well as manufactured homes. So there are quite a few different property types, and renters all qualify for the financing. For the multifamily side specifically, we have an affordable multifamily financing option, and we have a program specialist who is actively engaging with property owners who would qualify for that, as well as agencies, program partners, that kind of thing. But we're always looking for more communication with those networks. So if you have any in mind, please feel free to reach out.
Yes, and like, as I mentioned, Bayren does have a multifamily program, and prior to me being in this current position, I was working on the multifamily program as well. And so there is this divide for us. 1 to 4 units go into the Home Plus program, and then 5 or above go to what we call BAMBI, the Bay Area Multifamily Building Enhancements Program. So these, based on where they are, they qualify differently, and there's different program structures. So I have been working with the multifamily program to try to make that a little seamless. It's still a work in progress, but there are, in my experience there, I've worked with chapters of the California Apartments Association and realized that a lot of their membership is mixed property owners between those two programs. So we are, working with trying to figure out how do we provide that information together when we go to the landlords, especially. And then on my end, this kind of in the future, knowing that if we need to scale up and reach everybody, we need to figure out how do we, work with renters, especially since a lot of them are in that moderate income target that Bay Rent has. And so we're starting to think about how do we do that equitably, but also make it, something that property owners are willing to engage with, because really they have to be part of that decision. So we are, kind of reviewing other programs. We're coming up with ideas, and I'm honestly happy to talk to anyone else who has those questions as well, because like I said, it's something that we're going to have to figure out eventually. And there has been some interesting case studies out there. So,
Jeffrey, I just wanted to add that one of the programs, and it's one of my favorite programs that BayREN provides, is through a partnership with the Rising Sun Center for Opportunity based in Oakland. And that is a no cost free greenhouse call program. So that is available to renters as well as homeowners, but oftentimes the Bay Area or the BayREN reps like myself, we're going to be promoting that program to renters. So for example, I did a mailer of about 10,000 mailers that went to promote that program, the greenhouse call program, specifically to renters and individuals who English was not as their first language. So for Spanish, Vietnamese, and Mandarin, because those were some of the languages that Rising Sun was able to support as well. So I did that mailer directly targeting towards renters to be able to offer them that program. So that's some of the ways, again, that like this collaboration is working with. And in additional, just to answer one other question from that was for multifamily property owners, we also do a webinar, or we host webinars for multifamily property owners. And so we do bring in our partners, like I mentioned for the single family programs. I'll bring in the CCA or both CCAs, depending on if it's a regional webinar, and then also invite BayREN and then, the Go Green Home program as well to see if they're interested in presenting. So we do offer webinars and educational information outreach to our multifamily partners as well.
Great, thank you. Another question is, what has been your experience with members from the immigrant community who may not be as willing to provide personal information because of their mistrust of government and fear of deportation? What have you done to help build trust? I can start if, and so that is, trying to figure out who are our trusted messengers. So, one of the things that we, especially for me, my personal experience, my parents came from Taiwan, and I know that the way that they got information is not through the typical, not watching the same English language channels. It'd be watching, KTSF 26 in our neighborhood. They would read certain newspapers, and so one of the things that, we have done a few webinars in different languages, and we actually were trying to do that one in Spanish to pair with the Earth Day one, but we didn't get a lot of interest. And so kind of regrouping, we said, let's do a list, essentially do a listening tour. Let's go and find the nonprofits and community-based organizations out there in both, especially Spanish community and Spanish-speaking community, Chinese-speaking community, and have them be a part of the planning process. If we have to pay them so that they can spend their time to provide that input, because we know that it's not fair just to ask them to do that for us without compensation. So we are currently in that process. I will also say that this has been a learning process for us too. I can't, I'm not going to sit here and say like we've been perfect and we've done it all right. But I think we are authentically listening and knowing that especially for me, and we have a Spanish-speaking marketing coordinator for Bayren, and so we've gone to groups. We know that there's like in the Spanish-speaking community, there's the promotores model where you have local community members who really do that for the community, and that's very different from the Chinese community. So we can't apply one solution fits all. So I think, again, listening and having them be part of our messengers because they already have that credibility and legitimacy. I don't know, Tanya and Kaylee, if you want to say anything.
Jeffrey, I thought that was really well said. I think the only thing that I would add in addition to that, I mentioned that pre-pandemic, we did host in-person workshops. It's hard to not say workshops anymore, but we held in-person workshops in Spanish and in Mandarin. And I really do feel like I was surprised by the outnumbering people who showed up. Like for our Spanish one was in literally like East Side, San Jose. We had 75 plus people attend that workshop. And so I was overwhelmed with how many people showed up and just the response. And they really wanted to show up because they're like, I got this letter and is this legit? Who are you? And I was able to say, I was the one who sent you that letter. That's my name. And that's helping to build trust within the county. And then also for them to feel that they can trust these partner organizations that we're working with. So again, trying to add some of that legitimacy. And again, before the pandemic, we also had a workshop in Mandarin where we had over 100 individuals show in the city of Cupertino. And so that was just great partnerships. Again, it's meeting people where they are and being able to be flexible and being able to make sure that we can reach the community as equitably as possible.
And yeah, sorry. Oh, go ahead, Kelly.
Oh no, go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh, I was just going to say, kind of in the spirit of this webinar, also, once we make those connections that we're, sharing, introducing them to all the different programs. So it's not just Home Plus, but also, hey, there's this financing that's available. There's these greenhouse calls. Even on the contractor side, we know that because a lot of our programs rely on contractors to do the paperwork and outreach, that we also go out to the contractors together and provide these resources in language. And that's something that we're currently starting to work on. Go ahead, Kaylee.
And then I would just add from our program's perspective, so our entire website is available in Spanish. We translated it, I believe, in the fall of 2020. And we have several contractors who speak Spanish and other languages. We make that information available on our website so that when customers are selecting a contractor, they can choose one that meets their language needs. And our lenders are also able to serve customers in Spanish. So we have several different ways that our community is able to cater to customers with different language needs specifically. And I also just want to address the question of building trust. I think as a state agency, we've found through market research and anecdotally that, the state typically adds credibility and legitimacy, which Tanya and Jeffrey both mentioned are important, but I also recognize that there's a huge gap that could be present there of, immigrant customers and other customers who have a fundamental distrust of government. So I just want to recognize that and, speak to it as something that we definitely need to consider, and the way that our programs run, the fact that there may be some distrust that we deal with, and a group of customers that we're going to have difficulty reaching. So I would say that we've implemented some solutions to kind of help customers through the process, no matter what language they speak. But I definitely, understand the comment and recognize it.
Great. I think this next one is mostly for you, Kaylee. Can you address equity in the context of credit and qualifying for financing programs? How can these programs serve disadvantaged communities that lack both savings to meet upfront upgrade costs and or bad little credit for financing?
Yeah. So I'll answer that question in two ways. I think number one, the credit enhancement itself, the whole purpose of it is to leverage the private capital with better rates and terms for customers. And that includes the broader credit approvals that I mentioned previously. So the financing itself is offering a much better and higher quality product to customers, right? So better than market rate. And that's what the credit enhancement is designed to do. In terms of serving disadvantaged communities that lack savings to meet upfront costs and have bad or little credit for financing, I want to be clear that I think this financing program, specifically this debt-based program, serves a very specific need, right? And there are other programs that serve low to no income customers that will install certain measures for free in those homes. There are other programs that are designed to help higher income customers. And I think our program kind of represents one solution among many that fits the needs for a specific customer type. And I think it's very important to recognize that, we don't want to encourage anyone who, frankly, shouldn't be taking out a debt-based loan to take out a debt-based loan. So I think it's important to recognize that financing is one solution of many for that question. We have ways that we measure the ways that we're impacting disadvantaged communities. And I think I dropped a link to our quarterly reports in the chat. And I'll make sure I make that public to everybody as well. But I do just want to recognize that, financing is one solution. And as I mentioned kind of earlier in the presentation, not every solution is going to work for every customer. And thankfully, there are options available for customers that have, no credit or no income or low income that would be much better suited to them than financing would be.
Exactly. Yeah, I think one of the things I wanted to mention is we're also making connections with the income qualified programs, because our program is not meant, and we can't overlap with the existing income qualified programs, but we want, and they probably shouldn't do our program if they can get something else for free. But if it makes sense, we want to make sure that we're making that connection, and vice versa. If they have someone that's outside of their income requirements, that they are directed to us, and hopefully we can serve them together with the financing.
Absolutely. I also will just mention, we do have information on the other programs available on our website. Not a lot, but if a customer does happen to stumble upon our financing, there's also information about low to no cost programs as well.
Great. I think the next question, this may be a little bit open-ended, but I'd love to hear more about lessons learned with the virtual engagement. Any best practices to really get folks engaged?
Jeffrey, I can answer maybe this one a
Sure.
little quickly. I jotted down a few thoughts, but Zoom polls, or like how we did today, Mentimeter, just having live polls throughout the presentation has been helping to increase participation. Raffle prizes, I give like Bay Run swag bags out at the end of my webinars. Also keeping the content to 60 minutes and having engaging speakers and programs, so a diversity, encouraging the Q&A box, again, where our presenters are actively participating in that. And I also have given a free home energy score for one lucky person, which is valued at upwards of $350 if someone attends the webinar and also takes our post survey. So those are some of the ways that we've increased engagement, and I've been getting, thankfully, really good participation reviews based on surveys. Jeffrey, I do see that we're close to time.
Oh, right, yes.
So do you think I should just go to the next slide? I know we have a couple other questions there, or is there anything
one more, Tanya, if we want to just do the final question and then move on?
Yeah.
So the question is, have you encountered contractors using the legitimacy of the programs, organizations, and government in things like cold calls to homeowners representing themselves as part of the program when they aren't? If so, how have you handled it? I will say on our end, we have a very strict QA, and we have a QA/QC process. And if thankfully we haven't had to deal with this, but we can pull them off of our contractor list as soon as that happens. But yeah, thankfully we haven't had to.
Yeah, it's the same for us as well. We also do periodic reviews of our contractor list. We do remove those who have any kind of license action taken against their licensure. So we're kind of protecting customers in that way. In terms of cold calls or misrepresenting themselves, I don't think we've had any kind of purposeful instances of misrepresentation. Of course, there's the occasional kind of customer question or things like that, and we're always, happy to step in and handle those as they arise. But thus far, we've not had any kind of major issues with misrepresentation, thankfully. And I think I definitely credit that to kind of the strict QA/QC and enrollment processes that programs like ours implement, and they run as well.
Yay, go team. We were able to get through all of those questions. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted a question and just for being with us here this afternoon or morning, wherever you may be. And so just on behalf of Kaylee, Jeffrey, and I, we just want to thank you for attending today's webinar. And we hope that you're able to find our framework for interagency collaboration useful. We have our contact information here on the screen. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us and we'd be happy to connect with you. So again, just thank you so much for joining with us this afternoon. And I think Serena had a few closing slides as it's 11:15. So Serena, if you wanted to mention anything, feel free.
Thanks, everyone. That was such a nice, meaningful conversation. Yeah, I'll make this really quick. Just one more shout out to our sponsors. And on the next slide, you'll see a list of our upcoming events. We have one more today, 2 coming up on Tuesday next week, and of course, more events on Wednesday and Thursday, and for week 3. And we just sent in the chat a link to our post-session survey. Please do provide feedback on the sessions you're attending for a chance to win a gift card. We'll be doing a raffle at the end of it all. So thanks again, everyone. Have a nice morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.